Everyone, it's Victor speaking, and I'm here today with Donny, who is one of my great students, actually. We've been studying or working together for a good 6 months now on different type of subjects, and today we are going to be covering what 2020 might bring for us on a personal and on a world scale as well. This presentation or lecture is more focused on the world scale, but Donny is going to give you a little bit of an information what you might expect on the personal level. So if you like our video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button as well, and give us some love, please. And maybe in the comment area, let us know what other topics you would like to discuss, and we are more than happy to prepare those. And also, just an announcement, I am going to be holding a horary astrology class starting on the 11th of January. It's going to be an 8-week program where I am going to be showing you how to give easy yes or no answers with astrology. And this is very recommended to those people who are uncertain about their timing of birth. So thank you, Donny, for joining us. How are you doing today? Are you excited?
Well, 2020 just started off with a bang. So for me personally, at least, this year is going to be special. It's going to be a turning point for all of us. Yeah.
Surely, we have never, we haven't seen such a big year for a long time. 6 eclipses, a huge meeting point in Capricorn by 5 planets, a retrograde Mars and Venus period, nodal axis changes. So we've got a huge year ahead of us. So maybe we should start and let people know what they should be expecting. So let's get started then. That obviously it is going to be 2020. And if I really want to break that down in regards to like tarot cards, for instance, we're going to be talking about cards 20 and the card 4, because 2 plus 2 is 4. And 20 in tarot reading is all about rising up and leaving the past behind and breaking away from the past and basically creating something new. And before actually we do that, usually there is some crisis situation happening. And number 4, which is the card of Emperor, is all about foundation. So it's like revisiting most probably, the foundation, seeing what we have done right as humans, what we haven't done right, and then basically rebuilding something new. So in that sense, it's quite positive. Also, I just want to put it out there that astrology is a symbolic system. And, I in many cases, I've heard people like blaming Saturn and blaming this planet and that planet, for any type of issues they might, have in their lives. But planets are energies which live within us. And then we are the ones who can actually, divert those into the right, direct those into the right direction.
Yeah.
Think about it, like we're gonna have, I think in 2020, definitely one of the most important events is gonna be Mars, and Mars is gonna be talking about war and fight, but that also talks about, the desire to break free. And on a personal level, obviously, wherever Mars is in your chart, it's gonna be talking about what your desires are and then how you want to manifest those, especially when it's going to be in the sign of Capricorn. Then you've got Saturn, and Saturn is all about a borderline, basically, how much we can take. And I feel like when Saturn is going to be shifting energies, people are going to stand up and say that I can't take this anymore. There needs to be some type of changes. And then we've got Pluto, which is a very extreme energy. And then if we really think about the Greek mythology, actually, Pluto is the god of underworlds. And because he felt lonely, he decided to take Persephone with him. And Zeus basically made a rule, the god of the main god, made a rule that, okay, so Persephone is going to spend 6 months with her mom above, about on the ground, and 6 months with Hades underworld. So that's why Pluto is like a very extreme energy, and it usually talks about crisis situations which we're going to have to deal with. So today, how I want to pursue this is, actually it can be done in 2 ways. So the astrological year actually doesn't start on the 1st of January. It starts in March when Sun enters the sign of Aries.
21st year.
Yeah, it's going to be this year on the 20th of March, around 3:50 a.m. London time. And many of us tend to be having a look at the 1st of January energies, which is okay, obviously, because the calendar year starts on 1st of January. But astrologically speaking, the year is going to start around the 20th of March. So when I pull up a couple of transit charts for US or England, actually I have put down the astrological year. So one of the first events which we're gonna be having is the Saturn and the Pluto conjunction coming up in what, 8 days, so on the 12th of January. And as I said, Saturn is more about the responsibility, the inner responsibility we want to take in order for us to, to manifest great energies. But it's also about that borderline, the obstacles, what we have to face. And Saturn usually wants to teach us to overcome our barriers and then do something about it. And then we've got the Pluto energy to it. And by the way, Pluto has been around for a while now. So in Capricorn. But when these two meet, most probably it's all about breaking down exactly what's serving and what's not serving us anymore. We're going to have to act on those and create something new. I mean, it all happens in the sign of Capricorn, which is all about government. It's an earth sign, right? So earth is talking about the material world. And if we really go back in the past a little bit, actually we had a Saturn and the Pluto meeting in 1980, 1981. And it was in the sign of Libra, and actually it happened around the same degree as well, around 22 degree of Libra. So more about the third decan of the house, and it's going to be like a repetition. So most probably, I would say on a personal level, Libra is definitely going to feel Libra rising people, or actually everyone who was born around 80, 81. Well, especially those people who were born around the 15th of July, 15th of October in 1980, and people who were born around the 15th of January in 1981. Those people definitely will feel a lot stronger this influence on them. Yeah, so what do you think about this Saturn-Pluto energy?
Well, when I think about Saturn and Pluto, right, like Pluto is the first child, Hades, that was actually swallowed by Kronos.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was actually probably the one that stayed the longest in his belly. Yeah, and then he was just, just kind of, there you go to the underworld.
Yeah.
And since Pluto actually ingress or move into Capricorn, like I think it was 2008. That's when the whole financial crisis thing was just like, it was just a big fat mess. And now, banks will bail out, especially like those in the US, those mortgage companies, the big ones. And now Saturn swings by, and I was just thinking like, yeah, it's time to kind of look at, or at least those people who enable such such structures to stick around, to be accountable for. Because when I actually think about Capricorn energy, right, it is so hierarchical, and it is so like multi-tier, like people have to just look up to authority. And which brings me to my next point, like later on in 2020, we will actually have Jupiter-Saturn conjunction.
Yeah.
Right at the, was it the winter solstice?
Yeah, that's
in
right.
in Americas and also Europe. Well, I think it was 21st of December of 2020. And we will actually go through this thing called the grand mutation. Because if I actually look at the cycles of Jupiter-Saturn, it occurs every 20 years. And with Jupiter-Saturn, it actually talks about overall where the society is going. So it actually paints a flavor of that. So in terms of moral codes for the society, and also long-term social structures, where these two meet up.
Right.
So we've probably gotten a taste of it back in, like what you say, 1980, 1981, when we met up in Libra, and that's when the internet actually took off.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
You know,
and I think we got back and forth.
On a personal level, most probably, because obviously this meeting point is going to be the 22 degree in Capricorn for them. Now, if someone has got a personal planet around that degree, I would say between 22 and 24 degree of Capricorn, most probably they are going to be ending actually a 12-month cycle, because Pluto has been dancing around that degree since early 2019.
Yeah.
So it's going to be more about, in my opinion, Saturn coming along and trying to actually restructure your belief system or restructure things which you have not been working on most probably properly. And I think the ones who has got any personal planet around 20 to 24 degree of Capricorn, I think it's more going to be about a closure. And they've got an opportunity to kind of reborn. Now, the ones who have got a personal planet between the 25 to 29 degree, most probably they are going to be starting a new cycle, a new 12-month cycle. And the reason being is because obviously Saturn is going to be going back and forth a little bit. So it's going to be ingressing into Aquarius at certain points. And then after it's going to be going back into the sign of Capricorn, meeting Pluto again, and then Pluto is going to be catching up. Actually, Pluto is going to be reaching about 26 and a half degree by the end of 2020. So those people who were born, who has got a personal planet on 25, 26, 27 degree of Capricorn, I believe they're going to be starting a new 12-month cycle. And most probably they're going to have to lay down a foundation for themselves. They need to be retransforming their belief system and then seeing where their life is going on, basically. So just to give a couple of dates, actually. So the very first one is going to be on the 12th of January. And then actually I'm going to be sharing a table, I guess, later on in regards to the dates. Yeah, but this 12th of January, I think it's going to be on many levels a huge energy shift. For instance, what's quite interesting to say is that, for instance, in England, if I elect a chart for the astrological year, the start of the astrological year, actually Pluto is in conjunction with their rising sign on the dot. So for the year, they've got a Capricorn 22 degree rising sign, and then it's triggering their fourth house. which talks about foundation, which talks about where they are coming from, talks about their origin. So most probably, for instance, this is going to be, bringing in that manifestation of Brexit, what they have been really kind of dreaming of. Whether it's going to be a good decision or not, I don't really want to go into it, obviously, from a political point of view. But later on, I will talk about it because I believe Aquarius is going to shake things up a little bit there. So, but England is definitely hugely impacted. So just to show the chart there, so people can
there's
see.
actually another country that I looked at is very interesting in their natal chart or country chart, and it's China.
Okay.
China has natal Jupiter at 22 of Capricorn.
Oh wow! Yeah.
So if you think about this, right, when this Saturn-Pluto actually hits China's Jupiter, in which transit Jupiter will actually pass over that point later this year, we may actually see China expanding its powers and trying to overtake the US in that sense, like starting from 2020 onwards. And let's not forget what China has been doing leading up to this point with the Uyghurs concentration camps.
Yeah.
Minorities that suppressed, capital punishment, among other things. And also the surveillance, like Big Brother is watching, which is very Capricorn, right?
And do you remember what house Jupiter rules and which house Jupiter is placed in China's
that
chart?
One I have to...
Because obviously we're talking about Pluto, which is the planet of power. And Jupiter is the great benefactor. So in that sense, whatever Jupiter rules in that chart, most probably they can be taking on, some extra power in regards to them. And we know that talking about the earth signs, earth signs talk about resources, talks about, for instance, minerals, talks about the food industry. And we can see already that there are lackages in those fields. So we're running out of minerals, we're running out of food. Obviously, we've got all these catastrophes going on, the weather conditions, what we are having at the moment. So I reckon what China could do in that sense is maybe, having those extra resources, what other countries don't have.
Like reserves? Yeah.
And then obviously it depends whether the countries are able to negotiate between each other or not.
I've managed to just pull up China's chart, and Jupiter is in China's 12th house.
12th house, okay. Which could be talking about the hidden resources actually, right?
Yeah.
So the hidden
resources. What goes on behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, what they have been doing behind the scenes. Exactly. So it's like China having a secret weapon, basically. And what house is Jupiter rule there? So it rules the 11th.
11 and 2nd, yeah.
11 and 2nd. So it looks like, they can gain some financial security, basically. And it looks like they have been working on, probably since early 2019 to start with, on their long-term goals. I think they have been having their, ideas of how they want to conquer the world. And with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, actually, they've got great chances to conquer the US, to be frank.
It's very much behind the scenes, yeah, like with that 12th house Jupiter.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, what the government is doing and so forth, because it's in the sign of Capricorn as well, right? So it's going to be talking about governments. Yes, very, very intense, surely. Now, I just pulled up UK's chart, and we can see that actually the rising sign would be falling onto the 22 degrees, which I did not do there. And that's going to be in conjunction with Pluto. Now, the first house is really talking about
Do you want to
us.
share your screen?
Oh, I'm not sharing it. I'm really sorry. That might help. Yeah, so here you go. Here is the screen. So you can see Pluto being on 22 degree alongside with Saturn being around as well. And it's triggering the fourth house. Now, fourth house talks about where we're coming from. And obviously, no wonder why kind of people want to take back their country, because somehow they feel safer in their own environment. They want to protect their origin. And actually, Capricorn and Saturn talk about protection. It's like, you know, putting on a jumper because you want to protect your skin, or going sunbathing and then applying cream on your body parts so you don't get burnt. And there is the element of fear, most probably coming from that Uranus square, which has been going on for a while actually, with Saturn in the last good 2 years. People are really trying to protect their belongings in that sense. So I reckon actually Brexit could happen this year, and then I guess it's going to be happening most probably in around April time, when Jupiter is going to be also joining these very strong forces, and that's going to be happening on the 4th of April. And they're going to be
I think before Jupiter joins that, was it Mars in March? It will be transiting in Capricorn as well.
Yeah, that's right. I think maybe with the Mars energy, there is going to be some initial efforts being made. Well, for instance, first of all, Mars is ruling the 7th house. So actually, it could be talking about, you know, other people. It could be talking about actually the humans, right? The inhabitants. Maybe they're going to be having some quarrels about that. Maybe some protest could be going on, I think, in March. But eventually, I think the government will win. Not to mention that I guess the reason why the government will win is because also Sun is in Capricorn as well. And now Sun is going to be joining this very strong alignment in January anyway. So yeah, so it's gonna be there. I think it's gonna be happening most probably around April time.
Do you want to bring it a bit back and let's see the eclipses that the eclipse basically that triggered this Brexit? It would be very interesting to find out, because I actually dug up some things, and I actually got the date. I think it was 13 of. Oh no, the eclipse actually took place in 2018. So let's go back to the UK chart. Yeah. Right. Okay. So actually on 13th of July 2018, there was actually a solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer, and guess where that lands on? UK chart's moon in the 10th.
Oh wow.
Yeah, just 1 degree off. So you can see like UK's moon is at 19 of Cancer, and that solar eclipse actually occurred there. And 18 months later, you know, which is in a few days' time, on 10th of January 2020, a lunar eclipse exactly at 20 of Cancer again.
Wow, yes. There is if someone doesn't really know what we talk about, that there is a tiny technique called lunar gestation. And basically it talks about a beginning of a period where there is going to be, let's say, an eclipse happening. And then if it triggers a personal planet, it's like a new start. We're talking about a sun and moon conjunction, and that is really about planting the seeds, coming up with some new ideas, and so forth. Now, in UK's chart, actually, it is talking about the moon, and moon actually is the planet of public. So obviously in UK, there was a vote whether people want to stay or go.
Referendum.
And, what happens is 18 months later, there is going to be a repetition around the very same degree but obviously the moon is moving on. So if it was a new moon, then it becomes a full moon, and so forth. And the full moon is going to be talking about a culmination, so coming to an end. So what actually Donnie was explaining, that we had that new moon about 18 months ago, and then we get to a full moon point where it is all about culmination. So it's an end of a cycle. Full moon is all about visibility, so being seen as who we are. I'll give you an interesting fact, which is, I think, very funny. But for instance, in the UK, on full moon days, there is always extra police forces on the street because there seems to be more crime happening.
Or more lunatics.
Astrologically speaking, it is always great to organize like parties on a full moon because people tend to show up.
Or go crazy.
Yeah, we go a little bit lunatic around those times. So surely, yes, this eclipse can be an indication of, again, the Brexit is happening. Great. And then I also pulled up US charts, which I'm going to share with you. Oh, sorry, there's the eclipse. So let me just change it back to 2000.
Oh, can I actually add something about the eclipse?
Sure.
I actually dug up, like, there's a thing called Saros cycles, in which it clusters like groups of eclipses together. And the eclipse that UK just experienced, like what Victor just showed, belongs to the family of what in Saros cycles called 2 North. And it brings along like certain themes, you know, with every eclipse family. And it's interesting because the theme that belongs to this family of eclipses indicates that it may bring unfortunate news regarding friendships or relationships. So very interesting on a global scale. And dealing with ideas of a separation or ending of a union. Very appropriate.
Very appropriate. That's right.
Though the picture may look glum, there are positive effects indicated at the end of the rainbow.
I will talk about that later because I do believe that actually whatever is going to be happening this year, and it might be a little bit of a crisis, but I do believe that it is going to be necessary. Yeah. I think people kind of need to wake up. I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later. So the reason why I also pulled up US chart, because obviously we're talking about a big power. What's quite interesting in that chart is that Saturn and the Sun on the eclipse, on the astrological new year, both are going to be on 29 degrees. So Saturn is going to be triggering Pluto with his 29 degree, and also Sun is going to be on 29 degree of Pisces as well. Now it's all happening in the second house, which is the house of resources, which could talk about minerals, which could talk about foods, and so forth. And then obviously Pluto is there as well. So it's kind of like a Pluto return for the US.
Yes.
They really seem to be starting a new chapter in their life, which is going to be a good 800 years moving forward. And we're going to be talking about the 800 years as well anyway. So my prediction here would be that, first of all, I could imagine something happening with the government. I could imagine that maybe there is going to be an earlier election going on, or maybe the president is going to be reinstalled or not reinstalled.
Elected.
Yeah, maybe not necessarily re-elected, maybe replaced.
Okay.
I can definitely imagine that, but it looks like US is coming to an end of an 800-year cycle and starting a new chapter in their life. So it's probably very worth to have a look at what happened in the 12th century, for instance, in the US. And people might be seeing some type of repetition going on.
Do you actually see from this chart there's a potential for US to enter into civil war?
Yes, unfortunately, yes. For more reasons. First of all, Mars is going to be joining this very powerful alignment in the sign of Capricorn. And then later on, Mars is going to be spending 6 months in the sign of Aries. So to give you dates, actually I've written them down. What's quite interesting about Mars this year, because Mars has got a cycle of 2 years, and Mars tends to be covering 2/3 of the zodiacal signs in a year. But this year it started with a Scorpio, with the Scorpio placement, which is there. And then this year it's only going to be covering 1/3 of the chart. And then it's going to go up to 28 degrees of Aries, and then goes retrograde in about June time. I'm going to give you the exact dates. Goes back in Aries till the 15 degree, and then moves on again. So having Mars in a sign for 6 months is a pretty strong energy. Now this Mars is going to be squaring that Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter energy. Also, what's interesting is that Mars is going to be having a conjunction with an asteroid called Aries. And Aries is the asteroid of discord, arguments, fights. So a little bit of a mythological history behind Aries is that basically he was always asked to cause like confusion and arguments between people, because that's how Aries or Aries or whatever it's called, sorry, the god of war, to be able to start a war. So I reckon around the second and the third time, actually, there is a huge potential for a civil war happening, unfortunately. So Mars, to start with, as I said, it was in Scorpio at the beginning of the year. It has already entered Sagittarius anyway. So the Mars will join Aquarius energy in March, at the end of March on the 30th. And it's going to be there for till 13th of May. And I believe that Aquarian energy is going to be talking about unfinished businesses. And basically like closing down a chapter in our lives and then starting something fresh. Now, in the UK's chart, it is going to be quite, again, interesting because, as I said, I believe that's when people might go on the streets. Aquarius energy talks about freedom. And it's going to be happening in the 5th house, which is the house of, well, in a political view, it would be the house of standing up and taking risks to be able to show that you are strong. You want to show your strong will. And I believe people are going to be standing up there and basically saying that we had enough of you. We want to rule our country and not necessarily you. However, I do believe that on a certain extent, this pressure is going to be lifted up at the end of March as well on a world scale, because Saturn is going to be leaving the sign of Capricorn. Then the South Node will leave in May. So whatever we have been going on, whatever we have been going through in the last, I would say, 12 months, we're going to feel that the pressure is lifting up a little bit. Most probably, especially from May onwards. Yes. So how do you feel about the eclipses?
Well, like I mentioned in the beginning, I probably can't recall the last time we even have 6 eclipses in a year. But I actually looked at all 6, what are the characteristics of the 6, and I mean the big one, we're gonna have it in the next week. the biggest one
Oh.
actually, because like it's just 2 days before the Saturn-Pluto conjunction.
So let me just pop that up on the screen for people.
You can see like Sun, Mercury, you know, together, and then it's so close to that Saturn-Pluto at 22, like you mentioned. So yeah, I mean, like, and also like Jupiter is coming in, and I'm not sure about the general public, but I've been kind of feeling like it's almost like my head's gonna explode.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this like stellium going on in like Capricorn that's forming since, you know, like since the solar eclipse that actually occurred just after Christmas. So the pressure has been building, and people have been, or at least the people around me have been kind of like, oh my God, I feel so anxious.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's this huge feeling of like something that's gonna happen, but I don't know what the hell is going on.
That's right.
And it's actually
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And this like Capricorn energy is like, it's almost like a, when I think of Earth energy, like Capricorn is a very compressive energy. So people's minds are like metaphorically squeezed, you know, and they feel this kind of inner tension that they can't really figure out what it is. And yeah, I've actually seen people go berserk.
Yeah, sure. And you know that Mercury also can indicate that the public wants to speak.
Mm.
So again, there are great chances within 6 weeks of the eclipse, I would say, that people want to speak up. People want to, you know, gain power, because that Mercury is going to be in conjunction with the Sun as well. What's interesting also that Mercury is in Cazimi. So Cazimi means that it's on full power. Basically, the Sun is like shedding light, holding the hand of Mercury. And actually, Mercury in Greek mythology is like the messenger. So there is a great opportunity, I guess, there to have someone probably in the political world standing up and actually trying to support the public. Having Moon also, obviously, which represents the public, being opposites. So yes, definitely the Mercury and Sun are very strong, but oppositions usually talk about confrontations to a certain extent. It's like projecting your will, projecting your desire, basically, by the public, Moon, onto the government, which is going to be the Sun in Capricorn. And Mercury is all about standing up and basically speaking, telling the truth, telling your vision, basically. This is what we want. So I believe plenty of people will actually stand up. Now, I just wanted to, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so actually this this lunar eclipse, right? Like, to bring it back slightly, is actually the it actually started in 13th of July 2018 with that solar eclipse in the same degree.
Oh yeah.
So if you think about that, now it's like the culmination point, and it's almost like this. It's interesting that you say something about the, you know, like people versus the government. I feel that this particular eclipse is very much action oriented because it's in a cardinal sign, and cardinal is all about jumping to a situation and just do it. You know, it's all about the doing. And I would carry on to say that if you take the necessary fast action and grasp the reality of the situation, it can actually bring good results.
Yeah,
at the end of it.
I do agree with you. I think actually there could be good results. Obviously, guys, we are not here to ask people to stand up for themselves, but the energy seems to be that way. So people definitely want some changes. Yes. Going just back a little bit, I mean, obviously we're going to be having another very important event happening, which is going to be related to Jupiter. So Jupiter is going to be also conjuncting Pluto. And Jupiter is going to be conjuncting Pluto actually 3 times in the upcoming year. So one of them is going to be around the April 4th, and it's going to be happening on 24 degree of Capricorn. And we're going to have an exact conjunction going on June 30th, again on 24 degree of Capricorn. And the last one is going to be on the 12th of November, and that's going to be on 22 degree of Capricorn. Now, Jupiter is the planet of wisdom. Jupiter talks about the truth, and that's the planet of opinion. And Pluto is the power. So I think this combination is really going to be talking about that wisdom, how to use our power, how to motivate others to transform themselves into someone, to get into a better consciousness, basically. I feel like, because Capricorn talks about the foundation, I feel like on a personal level, if you question your foundation, it could be a hard time to deal with. But also, as I said before, especially with that eclipse happening as well very shortly, if the public asks questions, I think it's like shaking the core of the foundation up a little bit. Actually, the politicians, the government is not going to have any other choice but come out from behind the scene and actually tell you something. You know, Jupiter has got actually the tendency to make false promises, and definitely it is something we're going to have to pay attention to. But with the Capricorn, actually, I think we people have got the chance to realize the truth, being able to separate what's true and what's not so true. But on a personal level, I think this is going to be talking about, you know, transforming your belief system, realizing that we people are stronger than we believe. On an individual level, wherever, for instance, or whatever house Jupiter rules in your chart, that's where actually you can get stronger. That's where you can start feeling like more energetic. But you're just going to have to transform your power into something else. Because as I said, whatever you have been doing on, it might not have been working for you. And you're going to have to open different doors. And you're going to have to move forward from the old patterns. Yeah, so do we have any eclipse around those dates when Jupiter and Pluto are in conjunction? So June 30th and November 12th or April the 4th?
I think we do have one. Well, actually, there's a series of 3 eclipses in the June period, yes, June to July period. I mean, this year we've got 6, and 3 of them are actually bang in the middle of the year. So
actually, we've got one on the 21st of June.
Right.
Here you go. So what can you tell us about that energy?
When I actually look at Jupiter, Pluto, right, like what you mentioned just now, in Capricorn, I actually got a slightly different take. I'm not trying to be pessimistic here, but when I see like Jupiter, Pluto coming together, right, there can be perhaps like an excessive optimism.
Yeah.
It can also come in the form of like very intense beliefs.
Yeah.
You know? And I actually recall like when Jupiter actually entered Capricorn, right? That's when, you know, like in the UK, the Conservative Party actually won. You know, and now in Australia, yeah, they also have a prime minister which is very pro-Trump, you know, from the Conservative Party. And you can see how this plays out. Like people are voting Conservative, Capricorn. You know, what is in the past? And the rise of this kind of Capricornian, and with Pluto in the mix, you know, it can be kind of, what's the word called? Plutocratic,
yeah.
You know, as well as political power. But in Capricorn, it can be used in a very rigid way, because anything Jupiter touches, it just expands, right? And you can't land on Jupiter. It's just a gas giant. So.
Which is true, but you know, Jupiter at the end of the day, yes, it's all about faith. And then I think putting that faith into something or someone or actually yourself, it can create great things as well. You know,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, I know with my very heavy Sagittarius traits, I tend to be a little bit more optimistic. But, you know, I think on a personal level, it's just really about believing in something, believing in your own power. And then on a personal level, you might not feel it as strongly. On a world scale, oh yeah, surely.
Yeah.
You know, Jupiter is all about justice. And therefore, I believe in some countries, probably especially in UK, surely, it could be talking about justice. Some of the truth could come on the surface. Maybe some people are going to be realizing that who is making money out of such political decisions, which could, of course, cause tension. At the end of the day, Pluto somehow is related to war anyway. And we are going to have Mars around as well to kind of have that in a sarcastic way. So surely you are right. Now we can see here that we are going to have a huge stellium going on also with that eclipse. So the more planet we've got in one sign, the more important it becomes, right? Yeah, so do you have anything else to share there?
Well, actually, since this is a solar eclipse, you know, and it's probably the last one that we have in the Cancer Capricorn axis. Well, we have actually one eclipse that starts like I think in June, that starts in the Gemini Sagittarius axis. But this is the last like Cancer Capricorn one, and I actually look back and investigate like what family of eclipses this particular one is about. And I've got Saros cycle 4 north. The theme might be a bit dampening because it talks about restrictions, it talks about inhibitions, it talks about restraint, separation, and illusions.
Yeah.
So and events that actually occur like in this eclipse family actually has some kind of blocking influence, and it may actually make one like tend to misjudge one's strength or the situation. So people can be so-called like be in the veil, you know. And but having said that, the best advice that comes to this particular series of eclipses, family-wise, would be to hold out taking any real action until the energy of this eclipse family actually die down a bit, because it can be smoke and mirrors. You know, it gives me those kind of feeling when it comes to that. So just, yeah, I'll just put it as that.
Wow, definitely a very intense period, surely.
Oh, and also if I see properly, like Jupiter, Saturn just ingress into Aquarius.
Yeah, that's right. Saturn is already in Aquarius.
And 0 degrees, the eclipse is at 0 degrees. So it's, I would say like it's an exact quincunx or inconjunct 150-degree angle, which can mean that it's like we can't actually see what's actually going on. Because when something's inconjunct, it's almost like you don't see each other.
Yes, yes. So in conjunction is like 150-degree between two planets, if someone doesn't know. What I also learned in ancient astrology is that if you've got the sun and the moon and a north node conjunction going on, actually this could be causing extreme weather conditions. That's what the Asian people realized. So actually around those 6 weeks before and 6 weeks after, some countries might be experiencing some extreme weather conditions. Obviously, we're talking about, you know, Gemini, Sagittarius axis on 0 degree. 0 degree talks about the start of a new beginning anyway. So any countries who've got, you know, a strong Gemini or Sagittarius interest could feel that quite strongly. Even I would say the last degrees of Capricorn and Cancer energy also. Actually, those 4 signs, I would say, probably you want to be comparing these actual transit with your country's chart and then to see what's getting triggered. So to give you an example, for instance, for an earthquake, somehow the 4th house and Uranus is always going to be a question. Because obviously 4th house represents the ground and Uranus is like the shaking energy. Or if we talk about fire, somehow the fire signs are going to be influencing us, and most probably somehow the air signs as well, because obviously the fire needs air to spread. Yeah, so it's worth having a look at whether, for instance, your 4th house gets triggered. Those countries can expect actually an earthquake. And
I will actually look at the path of the eclipse, because what happened was, you know, like we just had one, like, was it like a week ago, like after Christmas?
Yeah, we had one on the
26th. Yes, and the path of the eclipse actually passed really like majority in Southeast Asia. And what happened was, I think shortly, I think it was on the news, like the largest tsunami in Philippines.
Yeah.
In a long time, and also floodings in Indonesia. That's where the shadow of the eclipse actually casted, you know, itself, imprinted over that part of the world. I actually just Googled where this particular eclipse will pass by, and it is
very interesting to see. Yeah,
yeah.
Share with us, please.
So this particular one on 21st of June 2020 will be passing by South and East Europe.
Lovely.
Much of Asia, North Australia, much of Africa, Pacific and Indian Ocean. So it's literally like, yeah, America is spared.
Obviously, it's quite interesting to see that it's happening in Australia as well. So we know what's going on in Australia at the moment with all that natural disaster things. And I also believe that this is just leading up to something. So if we really think about, you know, what's happening right now in the world is, obviously, as we said, the earth elements are all about resources. It's all about minerals, food industry. And we have been living a 200-year life where, so the reason why I mentioned this 200-year is because Jupiter and Saturn are having a conjunction every 20 years. And astrology uses plenty of cycles. And these cycles seem to be showing us repetition in history. Maybe on a higher level, but somehow the same things are happening in the world continuously. Now, the reason why we mention this 200 years is because Saturn and Jupiter meet in a certain particular element for approximately 200 years. And this 200-year period is going to be ending in 2020. So it's at the end of the year, it's going to be a shift from earth to air. And obviously, earth is all about the material world, as I said. And air is more going to be about technology and more going to be about
consciousness.
connecting with others, consciousness, basically towards the mind. Now, if I think about, the food packaging, or if I think about things like what we put in food, what you buy in shops, the food is full of ease and different type of, coloring.
Chemicals.
Yeah, let's call them chemicals. I try to find a nice word, but it's quite hard. I do believe that people are going to be a lot more conscious about their eating habits, a lot more conscious about their food as well, what they put into their system. And I do believe this could be a positive energy, but I do believe plastic in a certain way is going to be completely banned in most of the bigger countries, and they're going to come up with some new technology to replace that. I think when it comes to protecting animals, we're also closing that 200-year chapter. People are going to be realizing that this is not the road we should be on. Think about it. We've got 8 billion people in this earth. Since there is history recorded, there has never been so many people living this ground, basically. And the earth cannot take it anymore. So we poison it, which is very Plutonian energy, right? No wonder why there are so many natural disasters. Because I think the earth is kind of giving us a sign that you have been destroying me. I cannot give you any more, life. Now, talking about this Saturn-Jupiter energy shifting into air sign, which is going to be from 2020 December till 2199 actually, so almost a good 200 years. If you talk about the 4 elements, air is hugely important because without air you can't breathe, so you're going to die within 4 or 5 minutes. Obviously water is hugely important because we talk about you can't live without water for more than 4 or 5 days. And then we've got the earth element, which talks about food. Well, you can live without food for a certain amount of time, probably about 30, 40 days, but then you die again. So what's quite interesting here is that there is another asteroid called Ceres in conjunction with that Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn energy. And Ceres is a very nurturing asteroid. That's one of the biggest one. I definitely recommend using it. As I said, it's a nurturing energy, and actually it rules anything to do with seeds, wheat, anything to do with agriculture. And as I said, it's going to get a square from Mars. So unfortunately, when it comes to the agricultural situation, I think it's going to get a declination. And it could be because of natural disasters. As I said, that Mars and Aries asteroid conjunction is basically a very good recipe for a war. And Aries talks about survival instincts. It's like people fighting for food. People are like, and air energy talks about community and talks about commuting. I am really expecting in the next couple of years, or actually the next 20 years, that people are going to be leaving their original countries, and then they want to shift over to somewhere better. And we already can see the signs, and I think these are only signs what we are seeing at the moment. It's going to be on a larger scale. And to be frank, I'm expecting US to make loads of moves. People from US. And the reason being is, because their chart, the second house is hugely triggered. Which we said talks about resources, talks about money and and food. I'm really expecting that the government is going to be trying to fix that by a higher tax rate or tax brackets. And then now we've got that square coming from the fifth house. I believe people are going to be standing up and trying to take a risk. Yeah, let's shift somewhere else. Let's go to Europe. Let's go to Asia. Let's go to Australia, wherever they want to. Yes, and also air talks about community. So I think people are going to create a community on a larger scale. Air talks about knowledge. I think we are going to get access to hidden forces or hidden knowledge or hidden subjects which the governments are trying to cover up. Did you hear about this UFO stuff in September? They were planning to attack the 51 districts. And actually about 3 to 5 million people signed up for it. And then I think it was on the 21st of September, eventually only 3,000 people turned up, but there was a huge preparation by the US government trying to protect the 51 districts. And it was because obviously that's that's where they do these war testing things and, fights and preparation for wars and so forth. I'm not saying I believe in UFOs. I'm more like a materialistic type of person in that sense. But to have access to hidden knowledge and truth, I think that's going to be a huge topic also in 2020, 2021 especially.
While bringing back to that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, that switching element from Earth to air, since for the first 20 years is going to be in the sign of, or should I say 0 degrees of Aquarius.
Yeah.
When Jupiter-Saturn meets up. When I think of Aquarius, it's like a decentralized energy, in contrast to Leo, which is a centralized energy.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, do you think that like 2020 to 2040 will actually see like a decentralization of governmental structures?
Yes, I definitely can imagine that also. And I also can imagine that actually some of the capital cities are going to be moving as well in some countries.
Right.
And it could be down to natural disasters and so forth, but because of certain energies, I think some of the capital cities are going to be moving as well. I mean, it's interesting to talk about Saturn for a little bit because Saturn has been in the sign of Capricorn since 2017, December. And Capricorn is a female energy. So that's more about the pessimism, that's more about internalized feelings. That's more about the cautious type of Saturn. But Saturn moving into Aquarius, yes, which is going to be happening on the 21st of March. And then he's going to be there for a good 3.5 months, so till 1st of July, basically. I think that's going to be a period when we get a preview of what's going to come in 2021 and onwards. Now, the Aquarian Saturn is more external. It's more about the desire to have a community, a desire to connect with people. It's more like a humanitarian energy. And it's probably more about ideas, how to use what we have got to do something better. And, I'm really expecting Jesus to kind of reborn energy. When I had a look at all the information, what we've got, astrologically speaking, coming up, I felt like someone is going to come and, like a savior type of person, and put people on the right roads. Maybe it's, again, my Jupiterian, very strong Jupiterian influence, having 5 planets in Sagittarius, including Jupiter. But I felt like somehow Jesus is gonna reborn. What do you think about that?
Well, I was taken by surprise when you said it, actually.
What I exactly
Savior.
mean by is, obviously, I'm not talking about a higher power. I'm talking about
Right.
a higher power where someone is gonna get on a throne, okay, and actually trying to solve the issue of what people are facing and influencing other countries as well. So I'm talking about that type of savior energy here.
Well, I would actually look at those kids that are born with like Jupiter in Sagittarius, actually, that would really come in when like Saturn is in Aquarius, to actually bring the ideal, which is Sagittarius, into fruition. Like Saturn in Aquarius is to crystallize something like an ideal. When I think about Sagittarius together with Aquarius energy, right, there's this kind of like, let's do this, let's make it happen on the large scale. Let's kind of not just let it be floating in our heads and make this happen. Things can be quite extreme, but I'm really curious to find out, like, was it Greta Thunberg? I think it's Pluto in Sag. Like that generation, they are going to really like color the rest of us with their flavor of their ideals. Yeah.
I think there is going to be kind of a leader born coming in the next 5 years who are going to be trying to create a community and save us from all this destroying energy, what we have been going on, or what we have been doing. You know, if you really think about the Aquarius, it is also called the water bearer. And many people tend to believe that actually Aquarius is a water sign, just because it's usually, aqua, which means water. So, but actually what it talks about is, if I show the picture, it's about filling up your jug and then actually pouring that water out. It's like a selection process as well. It's like taking risks and throwing things away what's not working anymore. That's why Aquarius is actually the sign of emotional detachment. So I feel like a leader is going to come around who is not going to be, considering what people feel, what people might feel, actually wants a solid foundation. And yes, probably people would hate that to start with, but on a long run, I think it would be a leader who would want actually to do something to gain a better consciousness for all of us. I'm really kind of optimistic about that.
Yeah. I was also thinking that, like since Jupiter-Saturn changes element from Earth to air, right? And I was just linking that up with the world's global population plateauing.
Yeah.
And it will just kind of decrease from there. I think people are just waking up to the consciousness, which is air, that that having children, or down to the family and this and that, children are not just viewed as material assets.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like a new paradigm of thought where, okay, I think it's quite prevalent now that like people are not really having kids as much.
That's right. Obviously, in certain part of the world. It also crossed my mind that some countries might be coming up with some birth control legislation as well in the upcoming couple of years. I can definitely see that, astrologically speaking, happening. Especially with all these Pluto and Capricorn energy going on. I mean, Pluto talks about birth, Capricorn talks about restriction, talks about the government and legislation. So you know, it's not just about plastic, it's not just about protecting the animals, but I feel like, you know, like a new David Attenborough is going to be kind of coming along and, you know, trying to save animals and lives, and they're going to tell you that you can't have more than 2 kids, for instance, or you can't have more than 1 kid for a certain amount of time, which sounds very cruel, though.
Well, it's like China's one-child policy, right, in the 80s.
And yeah, China started that, right? Because, yeah. And the very last time we had this Jupiter and Saturn conjunction was actually 800 years ago, in a different sign. I mean, different element, sorry. And that's when people really started moving around, conquering different type of fields. It was actually between 1206 and 1226 time. And it was very typical for Europe, actually, at that time. I do remember, I kind of know my own history. And actually, that was the time when Hungary, well, it wasn't called Hungary at the time, but anyway, Hungary really went and tried to conquer different type of areas because obviously they ran out of resources. Now, exactly the same is happening, just on a larger scale. Another very important thing I think we need to talk about a little bit is in 2000, when we had the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction going on the very last time, right? Actually, what was going on, that Saturn and Jupiter was squared by Uranus. And if you remember 2008, we had an economic crisis situation going on. Now, exactly the same is going to be happening this time around. We are going to have the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction going on, early degrees of Aquarius, which is going to be squared by Uranus from the sign of Taurus. And Taurus rules storage, rules food. People actually will have that sense of urgency to start storing food, for instance, for a longer period of time. The fear, Saturn, of not having enough. And having Ceres there, which I said talks about, you know, all the agricultural elements, there is a huge possibility for, unfortunately, femininity. Is it femininity it's called?
Famine, yeah, famine.
Yeah, famine, right? So, yes, very interesting energy. Also, you know, what I actually like about this sign change with Saturn going into Aquarius, even though it's a short period of time, but Capricorn is a very cold and dry energy. But Aquarius is a heat and moisture, wet energy. So yes, it's like coming into realization. Capricorn tends to show a cold shoulder. Now the emotional part of Aquarius is going to come on surface a little bit. So I do believe we are going to come into our senses, basically.
Aquarius is also like one of the androgynous signs besides Gemini, right?
Yes, that's right. That's
yeah.
right.
So
you know, with the Uranus square, unfortunately, I don't think it's necessarily a World War III, which we should be expecting. I think it's going to be more about just a fight for survival instincts and trying to have something to eat. So yes, I think 2020, 2021 could be another economic crisis coming up all over the world. And it seems
we are due for one anyways.
Yeah, and it really seems to be starting from the US with their very strong second and eighth house. I think US is running out of money and resources. That's my very strong gut feeling there. They've got a very strong sense of not having that power what they used to.
Wow.
And
I'm strong 8th house
getting that
US chart.
Saturn, and then getting that Saturn Pluto activation going on 27, 29 degree, opposing all the 8th house energy, and opposing that part of fortune. And it's like they are running out of their luck. And now it's like trying very hard, Capricorn, to come up with some solutions. Now, even if you think about Mars, Mars is like the blade, right? And then Capricorn is the stone. So it's like having that blade in the stone, and there needs to be someone coming around who is going to pull that sword out of that stone. If we really think about the mythology, there was only one person who could pull that out. So it's like pulling out the plug in your bathtub and then see what's going to happen. And I think that's what America is really going through at the moment.
You think the housing bubble, because I see 8th house, right? Cancer, housing bubble, debt, housing mortgage, ruling the 10th. You know, this veil will actually drop, and there has been talks about the housing mortgage bubble like being really like, you know, it's just not reported, but it's just waiting for a lesser nice phrase, like, you know, shit will hit the fan very soon, because that Mercury is at 24, and it might come in the next like less than 2 years time.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I believe that there is going to be issues around the housings. If someone, my personal recommendation, astrologically speaking, if you want to buy a property, I think wait till the second part of 2021, or rather the beginning of second part of 2020, or the beginning of 2021, because I think the prices are going to drop. And financially, I think people are not going to be able to pay their debts in many cases, and they won't have any other choices but to sell their properties. That's my very strong gut feeling here.
Right.
So that's my recommendation for everyone if you really want to, you know, buy a property. Also, what's very interesting is that, you know, the Saturn in Capricorn energy is more aligned with the season autumn. And the Aquarian energy is more aligned with a spring. No, spring. I mean, because the air signs are related to spring overall.
Right. Okay.
So obviously, the spring talks about blossoming. The nature starts to, you know, get alive. And Capricorn, the autumn part talks about getting ready for the winter period. It's all about the leaves are falling off, everything is dying off, discoloring, and so forth. So I think that kind of Saturn moving into Aquarius for 4 months, and then later on, obviously, for 2.5 years, is going to be a huge turnaround. And actually, I feel like when Saturn is going to be hitting the moon in the US chart, is actually going to be a positive manifestation there rather than the restrictive energies. I think the ideas of US are going to get crystallized, and maybe even they are going to listen to the public as well, the public's opinion. Maybe even the public is going to vote about certain regulations, how they see, how they want things. Yeah, that's my prediction on that.
You reckon people will shift more to mobile homes since like moon is in the 3rd?
Yeah, surely.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, moon is in the 3rd house is actually it's her favorite placement. And we're talking about the high priestess energy there. So there is something called planetary joys, where what house the planets being at, and moon's favorite one is the 3rd. Now, it's like a high priestess energy. It's gaining consciousness, gaining knowledge. So I do believe, astrologically speaking, actually America is going to be a lot more kind of esoteric focused. many American friends of mine are saying that astrology is still like a taboo there to a certain extent, and I think that's going to also shift from about 2021 onwards. They're going to become more spiritual. Great. So if I'm not mistaken, you have done a little bit of a sign prediction, right, by the eclipses?
Not by the eclipses, but oh, we haven't talked about the nodes changing signs.
Oh yeah, here you go. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, from late May onwards, the nodes were.
I'm here. Yeah.
The nodes will actually change sign from Cancer Capricorn axis, and it will shift back to Gemini Sagittarius. So there was actually like I was actually doing my research, and there was some talk of like the North Node being in Gemini is actually like exalted or something, because there's like qualities of North Node, like, you know, the experimental kind of quality and the mishmash, you know, or always try everything, always curious. All these qualities of North Node actually fits into Gemini pretty well. So, and when I think about Gemini, right, it's about what the five senses can actually pick up and perceive and understand. In contrast to, you know, the other three mutable signs, like Virgo will be very like microscopic, you know, everything about scrutiny.
Yeah.
And Sagittarius is about telescopic, like looking to a telescope, looking far, you know, but it's still something like tangible. And then the last mutable sign is Pisces, and it's very cosmic. You know, you see the infinite possibilities out there. So when I actually look at, I actually quite like this Rahu or North Node that they'll be swinging past Gemini. Just let me pull up the what I have here. Okay, so the nodal axis will actually be in the sign of Gemini Sagittarius for like 18 months. So it will be towards the end of 2021, whereby it will change axis to Taurus Scorpio.
Yeah.
So I'll just go through very fast, like for the 12 signs, what the nodal change will actually bring. So for Aries, the North Node Gemini will actually be in their 3rd house, and South Node Sagittarius will be in their 9th house. So it can, on a personal level, it can mean like, on the North Node side, it can be learning a little bit about everyone, you know, be it neighbors, and becoming more interested in the apparent facts of a situation than in the supposed truths. So it's connecting more of, you know, the five senses, factual understanding, than just kind of like, you know, like what, swinging to the more subjective kind of beliefs. So for Aries, it can also be more like, for Aries, it can be getting your news on internet.
Yeah.
You know, something as simple as that. It's not like, it doesn't have to be really like rocket science. Or it can just mean like, the North Node can mean like getting more informed, simply. And learning to listen more.
Yeah.
For Aries, yeah, for Aries rising, we're talking about rising signs here. So what else can I actually, because I scribbled down a few, and it's quite funny when I was scribbling through. I think that's all I have, you know, in brief about Aries. So Taurus, the North Node in Gemini will be in your second house, and South Node Sagittarius will be in your eighth house. So is the second eighth house is the material axis. So Taurus, when this North Node, South Node axis swings by this part of your chart, is about letting your values change with the new information you gather and learn.
Yeah.
Something regarding that. And getting to know what holds value for you by observing the facts. It's also that Sagittarius in your eighth house, it might be kind of releasing the need to have an opinion about other people's business.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of like minding your own business, so to speak, here, than just minding other people's business. For Taurus, it's also becoming less concerned about hidden truths, the eighth house, and more concerned with observable facts. Since Gemini, North Node will be in your second house, right? You also can be valuing lightness, adaptability, and also using your wit to navigate things. And of course, second house is about income. So
you know what came to my mind is that in 2000, because obviously the nodal cycle lasts for about 18 years.
Yeah.
So the last time when we had this energy shift was around 2002-ish. And actually 2002 was the year when euro became a legal tender. I'm also, it just came to my mind because of the Taurus and Scorpio axis. Actually, I'm expecting maybe to see new currencies coming up or something to do with the financial world, like a restructuring energy there, maybe introducing new currencies or actually, unfortunately, it could also show with all those eclipses and so forth that unfortunately the financial world might collapse for a certain amount of time as well.
You reckon the euro will be redesigned as something else, you know, or?
For instance, yes. For instance, it could definitely happen. Euro is getting redesigned. I mean, at the end of the day, think about it. If Brexit happens, it's gonna be a fortune for England, surely. So
right.
The economy is gonna collapse for a certain amount of time because England is still in rulership in like 16 countries. So, and to change the notes in those 16 countries are gonna take time and loads of money. Yeah, I just wanted to add that to it.
Right.
So I'm expecting something to do with the currency, and most probably to start with, it's gonna be a negative tune to it.
Right. And for Taurus rising people, since the North Node will be on second house in Gemini, Gemini is about income streams. So Gemini is about duality. So maybe Taurus rising need to, like, you know, have a variety of income streams.
Yes,
in
and
this, like,
probably
coming
Taurus rising sign countries might feel this very strongly, the currency issues. Could be feeling it hugely strong, even in regards to, you know, resources, what we spoke about earlier. I think Taurus rising countries can feel that very, very strongly.
Let's move to Gemini. North Node will be in your first house, and South Node in Sagittarius will be in your seventh house. So it's the relationship axis. So maybe Gemini risings, when this like North-South Node swings by, it may be asking you to take the initiative to make connections with people in your environment. It'll probably be prompting you to like start a conversation and keep it rolling.
Yeah.
And it also asks, because Gemini is a very like curious sign anyway, so when the North Node transits there, you'll be probably be pushed to approach the world with more questions and curiosity than normal. Yeah, and also being mischievous.
You know, when the first and the seventh axis get activated, I'm also a little bit scared of these civil war stuff, because obviously we've got the country against the people.
Yeah.
Now, if you really think about some of the Gemini countries, or I'm not too sure what their rising sign is, but for instance, actually London is a Gemini-influenced city.
I think Melbourne as well.
Melbourne as well, maybe. I know Wales, Belgium, Morocco, San Francisco, definitely a Gemini interest city also. Yeah, Melbourne, you are right, surely. Yeah, Iceland, I think the
Oh, Iceland.
Norwegians belong there as well. So I might be expecting some type of energy shift there, surely. Sorry to interrupt.
It's fine. For Gemini rising, it's also about staying curious. Be very curious and ask the questions. You'll probably be meeting a lot of teachers out there actually, or come in touch with a lot of teachers because of their South Node in the seventh house coming to you, the other end of the spectrum. But then for Gemini rising, there could be a sense of like resisting the opinions of other people.
Yeah. Also, which came to my mind here is that some of the businesses, because that is ruled by Gemini, are going to shift into like Montenegro and these type of countries. And yeah, I think people are going to be, or governments are going to be very clever about taxes and so forth. So actually, I might be seeing some shift in Montenegro, for instance.
Okay, let's move on to Cancer. Cancer rising. So the North Node in Gemini will be in your 12th house, and South Node in Sagittarius will be in your 6th house. So that North Node in Gemini in your transiting through your 12th, it can be developing curiosity about spiritual practices and letting yourself explore transcendental experiences as well.
You know, on a world scale, US has got a Sagittarius rising sign. So it's going to be happening in their 1st and 7th house axis. So that could also mean, you know, that the ideas and the justice are somehow going to confront each other.
If I'm not wrong, actually, the 7th house in any country like has a strong political flavor to the 7th house.
That's right.
The country's chart, so it's in the sign of Gemini.
And also,
and guess who's a Gemini?
And also, US has got Uranus and Mars there.
And guess who's a Gemini now? The current president, right?
Oh yeah, surely. My prediction is that he's not gonna get elected, to be honest, or he's gonna be changed earlier than
expected.
Than November. Yes.
Right. So okay, let's just go back to that Cancer rising. So yeah, Cancer rising, that South Node in your 6th house, it can mean like to kind of probably not be so self-righteous about your health ailments and disease, and just kind of seek treatment when you need to, and just not kind of, this is what I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and really like have the proper diagnosis rather than just kind of like assume things, because there's a to paint things in broad stroke, that can be like a not so positive like manifestation of Sagittarius energy. So what else can I say about Cancer rising? Oh, okay. That 12th house Gemini North Node can also mean like approaching spirituality from the perspective of a journalist.
Yeah, surely.
Like be like an investigative journalist in terms of spirituality. So you may want to find out more facts for yourself, like venture into different forms of spiritual practices and make your decision from there and make your evaluation, like practical evaluation, which is Gemini. So, and it's
But
also
again,
good.
and again on a world scale, obviously, we might be talking about some secret weapons here, which could be illness related as well. So actually, maybe in some of the cancer rising countries, there might be some infection possibilities could be going through, especially because of Mars is going to be square in the 12th house, right? Sorry, it's going to be square in the rising sign, sorry.
Yes, Mars is going to square that, yeah.
Yeah.
So, because also like the Gemini Sagittarius axis is like a restlessness. So if I were to carry on what you said regarding like the spread of illnesses in those countries with the rising with this particular rising sign, it's going to spread like wildfire.
Yes, but I also expect having plenty of research is going on, especially because Saturn is going to be getting into Aquarius for a certain amount of time. And what I'm expecting there is actually some countries coming up with some cancer research, very great results.
And since like Aquarius is a kind of like an extreme sign, and Aquarius also rules like scientific research and knowledge, right?
Yeah.
You reckon there'll be like a like science will be my belief kind of thing coming up?
Yes, but Aquarius also rules freedom and sexual freedom. So definitely, the sexuality as such is going to get a bigger role. So anything to do with LGBT, whatever, are going to be a lot more huge topic, I guess. And also, unfortunately, Aquarius rules anything to do with rare illnesses to a certain extent, so the extreme conditions. So either they are going to find a solution for AIDS and HIV people, or it's going to start spreading as well on a larger scale, unfortunately. Especially because of the Mars, is going to be squaring it, they're going to be trining, and so forth. So there's going to be some energy going on there. And also, I think it's going to be more of a topic when Uranus is going to be coming around, probably in about 5 years' time. But we're going to start seeing some type of energy shifting into that field as well in the upcoming couple of years, I believe.
Right, and for Cancer risings, right? You probably realize that lightness actually comes from healing, which is 12th house. So like for Cancer risings, they'll probably go through this kind of like researching a lot about healing spiritual practices in order to make themselves feel lighter. Because with the current eclipses in Cancer Capricorn, they're having so much activation of their ascendant and like first house and seventh house energies, and they probably like go through this kind of it can really put them into a crazy cuckoo phase.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so some healing will probably take place in the next 18 months for them.
Yeah, surely.
Yeah. So Leo, this North Node in Gemini will be in their 11th house, and South Node Sagittarius in their 5th house. So when I look at that, Gemini is about trends. Like pop culture is very Gemini. 11th house is friends or peers. So that North Node can be like, Leo risings can let themselves be swept away by the trends of peers. to put in perspective. And for the South Node, it can be like probably not being too self-righteous about, one's personal artistic vision. It would probably be nice of them to just kind of join a group to just see the what's on the other side of things. And 11th house is also like people that kind of acquaintance. It can be just who you add as a Facebook friend without knowing them that well. And then 5th house is like your buddy that you really treasure. 11th house I see it as like a happy hour buddy.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's go for a drink. I don't know you, but let's go for a chat. It can be more of that, and you'll probably be doing a lot of that, for Leo rising, to have fun. So you also can be like learning to speak to large groups of people as if you're having a personal conversation with each one of them. So it can be very good to do some form of teaching to groups or give lectures, which is 11th house. That's when you talk to a huge bunch of people at the same time. So it also can be internet business as well.
Surely, I think, yeah. And also, probably those natives could be working on their long-term goals as well. They are going to be feeling the need to work on their long-term goals a lot more as well. Virgo.
How about Virgo? Virgo North Node in Gemini will be in their 10th house of career and public image, and South Node Sagittarius will be in their 4th house of like home, inner core, safety, security. So it can be kind of, the North Node is asking Virgo risings to pick a career path that allows for stimulation and variety. So it could be the year whereby they branch out and do 2 things at once.
Yeah.
Because with Virgo rising, the most famous one I know of is Madonna. And she always kind of, change her image every, 18 months to 2 years.
You also have a Virgo rising sign.
Yeah.
Working on your public image, right?
Well, kind of. So that 10th house North Node transiting, it can also be becoming known as someone who is informed, lively, and conversational, and chatty. That's very Gemini. And being known for your networking skills, which is also Gemini. So 4th house South Node in that Sag, right? It can mean that innate idealism that Virgo risings have. You just need to let that go, because that can prevent you from getting out into the world. Yeah.
Probably some of the Virgo rising signs can expect relocation as well, basically, because of work.
Because Sag is like a sign of like culture shock, right? Yeah. You're gonna go beyond borders for that. So.
And Virgo is the sign of selection. So it's about choosing the right place, the right spot where I feel I could belong to.
So, and for Virgo risings, at least for myself, there's always this kind of because my IC and my 4th house are in a sign of Sagittarius, so I always feel like a foreigner in my own home country.
Yeah.
Or I can be mistaken for being a foreigner all the time.
And probably Virgo would be making that move to gain a higher social status. As you just said, feeling a foreigner in your own country is like, I cannot achieve what I am meant to be achieving. So coming probably to an awareness. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, so the awareness is there. And probably plenty of Virgo rising people want to shift their energy and probably making some moves.
And when with that South Node also is Sagittarius going through their 4th, right? It can also mean that kind of easing up on kind of blind faith in one's roots and cultural traditions. So it's getting real about that and kind of shifting the energy out from the 4th house. And perhaps also like making a career out of keeping up with trends.
Yeah.
a trendy
So,
career that kind of, the trend is just changing every, it can also mean like an internet business though.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, if we talk about like the Gemini North Node,
Hmm.
the North Node is all about what you have to learn, where you should be showing some type of hunger. Obviously, the North Node is represented by the dragon's head. And then imagine that mouth is being open. So you kind of need to feed that mouth.
Yeah.
So the North Node is all about what you have to embrace. So it's more about community activism, basically being here now type of feeling. Probably it's pretty much about a playful exploration,
Mm.
more about learning how to do one thing at a time rather than, you know, being scattered. It's like building on your active listening skills. Of course, Gemini is a relating sign, so it's all about partnerships, dynamic duos, probably taking more time in local activities, spending more time with your hobbies. Even for a Virgo rising sign, turning your hobby into a profession. And then South Node is going to be talking about what you kind of have to believe. And it's going to be about, you know, the fixating energy on the future, or being a jack of all trades, focusing more on one thing, you know, biting off more than what you can chew, basically, type of energy. It's all about gathering the information first, and then, you know, once you have got all the data, selecting those, and then work with the best possible outcome. It's you know, it's all about not getting lost in theory. It's more about actually examining the options a little bit closer, Gemini, and leaving your opinionated behavior behind, and actually having a bit more action going on.
Or I should say that being more present in the moment.
Yeah, being here now, being more present in the
Yeah.
moment, yes. So it's more about the time of actions, even though it's a mutable sign, and the mutable energies talk about gathering information, being scattered a little bit, but yeah, building on that active listening skills. On a worldly scale, that's another reason why I reckon that the people are going to get hurt, or the people want to get hurt even more. Yes, sorry. Just wanted to give a little bit of my own intake on that. No,
Yeah, so
Nodal
let's move on to Libra, because North Node in Gemini will be in your 9th house, and South Node Sagittarius will be in your 3rd house. So on a more like personal like level, it can be learning to ask other people about their worldviews, you know, to just kind of open up, like be more curious about what other people, their belief systems are for Libra risings, and finding out why people believe what they believe.
Yeah.
And be like that journalist to actually investigate in a way, you know, keep asking those questions to find out for yourself. And through that, you can actually see the duality of your own belief systems.
Yeah.
Yeah. And from there, you can release some of the ideas that you previously have, which is the 3rd house, Sagittarius South Node passing by.
Sorry, I just pulled up UK's chart again because it could be quite interesting. Yeah. And obviously, it's going to be triggering the 3rd and the 9th house axis. And as we said, South Node is more about emptying out, letting go of things. And at one point, the South Node is going to be conjuncting Chiron, which is the emotional wounds. So it could be another phase in the next 18 months for England to go through a transformation, which might be causing, unfortunately, some emotional pain. Now, I'm not even sure if I would be allowed to say such things, But I think there is going to be a shocking event happening in the next 18 months in the UK, which is going to be restructuring their belief system and the whole governmental type of energy. If some of you are getting what I am trying to say, then you are getting it. I'm not going to be saying that blatantly.
Right.
I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to do that, but yeah, so the Chiron on a large scale, I think that humanitarian energy seems to be collapsing for a certain amount of time.
But before it hits that Chiron, you'll hit that Mercury, right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So you'll be like activating UK's chart, the 12th and 9th.
Yeah, the house of losses and obviously the house of your beliefs. Yeah.
Well, and also 9th house is also exports, right, in the country's chart.
That's right, yeah. There could be a little bit of a restriction going on there, surely.
Oh, and also 12th house, if I'm not wrong, is also like institutions like hospitals.
Yeah.
So not sure whether with this conservative party that's elected, whereby like, you know, was it the NHS?
Yeah, NHS, yeah.
National Health System, is it? Or security? I'm not sure.
One of those two, yeah.
Yeah, like there may be some kind of change regarding the whole NHS system.
Surely. And you know, the Uranus is going to be also transiting Mars as well in the 8th house. So which is again suggesting my theory on this, probably first on a country level and then on a world level as well, because that Mars rules the 7th house and also rules the 2nd. So financially, some loss I'm expecting, unfortunately, in England, and we know that that's going to be impacting the whole world anyway.
Because if I'm not wrong, in a country's chart, the 8th house rules like foreign investments.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
and
right.
7th house, it rules like, you know, one-to-one like trading partners.
Yeah.
So
Another
that
very interesting thing is that Chiron is transiting actually an asteroid called Polus. And Polus is the asteroid of a turning point. So it's a huge shift in UK's life, surely. The next 1.5 years, surely. The next 18 months. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I think you've got Scorpio coming up, right?
Scorpio coming up, and North Node Gemini will be in your 8th, transiting through your 8th, and South Node Sagittarius will be going through your 2nd. So for Scorpio risings, it can mean like, you know, letting go of overly idealistic values that one might have, and finding out what other people value by asking them. Okay. And 8th house is also about investments that one might have on a personal level. So be more curious and find out the facts of like what you're going to invest than just jumping into it, and be more hungry, North Node, regarding that. And but Scorpio risings can also become more curious about other people's stuff.
Yeah,
and also like because 8th house rules sex as well, so there can be increased curiosity to explore that part. I mean, 8th house is not only purely sex, but also like psychological transformation. If you're interested in that as well, reading up on psychology books and also occult books. It can be a good way to kind of channel that North Node energy. And what else?
And most probably about your trust issues as well. Trusting a higher power, trusting your abilities, your talents. The talent really belongs to the 2nd, 3rd, 5th house, really. So, and the 2nd house is the house, especially if you've got a planet there, that's going to be an indication of how you can gain money. Through what house? So, for instance, if you've got a Mars in your 2nd house, actually by the Mars ruled houses, you can gain some additional income through Mars activities. So it's probably a little bit of an exploration as well on that financial scale on a personal level.
Right. Second house South Node in Sag, for Scorpio rising, it can mean like moving away or releasing some kind of moralistic attitudes that one might have. So that's roughly all I got for Scorpio risings. And let's go to Sag rising. North Node Gemini will be in your 7th house, and South Node Sagittarius will be in your 1st house. So yeah, probably for Sag rising, you need to be more curious about your partner. Keep asking your partner questions to find out more that what you might have not bothered to ask before.
Yeah.
Finding out what your partner actually thinks, then just kind of assume, which I know Sag risings can have that tendency. That South Node passing through your 1st house for Sag rising is also about releasing the need to push your opinions on the people close to you.
I think Sagittarius rising will especially feel the North Node energy at the end of the year, because there is going to be a solar eclipse happening also.
Yes, let's look at that after
7th axis, right? And the 4th.
Let's look at that after the 12 signs. I think, because I think I also jot down the theme of that particular eclipse.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
So Sag rising is also about that South Node is about lightening up on the need to view life from a moral standpoint or perspective. Like everything is about morals, so kind of you need to kind of lighten up a bit. Yeah, taking an active interest in others when you engage one-to-one. Try to enjoy small talk that can bring two people together and make them feel closer.
Yeah.
That's a North Node for, yeah, I think that's Capricorn rising. So North Node will be in your 6th house. South Node will be in your 12th house. Capricorn rising can actually work in a writing capacity, more and more in this 18 months, because Gemini rules writing and 6th house rules work environment. So you can probably write more in your or in your writing environment, in your work environment, you may write more, yeah, or like have some work projects that ask you to do some writing of sorts. And Gemini is a very stimulating, active, and high energy sign as well. So when the North Node is in your 6th house, you can be working in such working environments, or you kind of prefer that. You need things to be stimulating and active and high energy. And your everyday routines may become more stimulating and lively. You may work towards something that's like, it can really add some variety to it.
Yeah.
So how about that South Node in the 12th house? Probably for Capricorn risings, it's about kind of easing up on that emphasis on spiritual and religious pursuits, and go more into like the everyday world, which is the 6th house. Capricorn risings can actually try to make more connections with your co-workers and employees.
Surely. And the 6th house rules the health as well. So
yeah.
With the Gemini, there we could just gonna have to pay attention to our thoughts.
And also ask more questions.
Ask more questions, exactly. And it's like the 12th house is all about the subconscious. So emptying out that subconscious, changing your lifestyle, I think it's gonna be hugely important for Capricorn, right?
Oh, yes.
And shifting consciousness as well.
Like choosing an active routine for your health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And probably it's all about speaking up at work as well. If you are not, for instance, in a management position, I think that could be also quite important for them in the next 18 months.
And if I'm not wrong, North Node has actually kind of a malefic kind of connotation with it. And since if it falls into the 6th house of health, Gemini actually rules the lungs.
Where the North Node, in my interpretation, it's more like a little bit of a actually. If you show enough hunger towards something, then it could be a manifesting power. And the South Node, in my opinion, is more like a Saturnian energy. And the reason being is because we tend to be trying to use the talents we have gained in previous lifetimes, and we tend to be living our life, especially in the first part of the life, through the South Node energies. That's like a familiar territory.
Yeah.
And emptying out that familiar territory and going towards the new energies, in a long run, you benefit a lot more out of that.
So when you see someone's chart who actually South Node is one of the things you check. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the South Node ruler as well. Okay. The last thing I actually said about Capricorn rising is paying attention to the daily fluctuations and changes in your health and body. That's one of the, and also noticing how one's daily environment, 6th house, affects one's nervous system, Gemini, and one's ability to stay mentally alert.
Yeah.
Gemini as well. So, okay, second last sign, Aquarius rising. North Node Gemini 5th will be going through there, and South Node Sagittarius in 11th. So it's about exploring your creativity through a variety of media. That South Node in the 11th is like probably no longer leading to have an idealistic cause in the name of truth. So the 5th house Gemini can also mean that for Aquarius rising to explore creative writing. And also spending more time with children, if you have children, of course. And also engage more into spending more time in your creative pursuits that honors yourself. You know, the fifth house is about honoring selfhood. So the 11th house Sagittarius South Node passing by would be talking about releasing the lead to belong to overzealous movements, like these fanatical movements or social causes, and moving into what actually interests you on a personal level than on a group level.
Yeah.
5th house Gemini North Node can also be, if I were to kind of, as an axis, it would be believing in a larger community while honoring your personal creative curiosity. Yeah. So, so the last sign
Pisces.
Okay.
Oh, that's
North Node. Yeah. North Node Gemini in the 4th and South Node Sagittarius in the 10th. You know, so it can mean becoming more adaptable in family situations with that South Node. With that North Node in your 4th in Gemini, yeah, to become more adaptable in family situations. And with that South Node, it can mean releasing the need to be seen as having all the answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also releasing the need to be seen as a prophet. And yeah, since 10th house, where the South Node will be passing by, it can mean some form of the pursuit of awards and recognition. You can kind of let go a bit of that, yeah, as well, or kind of work towards the 4th house more. I wouldn't say totally let it go. So what else do I have? 4th house, that North Node, it can mean like becoming more concerned with your own personal learning process and it's also keeping your thoughts to yourself more.
Yeah. For instance, because I've got a Pisces rising sign, I've just decided to go back to school and study some other things as well, so I can combine those with astrology. So I'm going to start in 2 weeks' time, family constellation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
as a counselor?
Yes, yes, as a counselor, yeah. So that really triggers that Sagittarius element to a certain extent, because obviously I've been doing astrology for 20 years, so it's about time now to mix that up a little bit with something. And for all the viewers, I kind of recommend to, not to go against the energy, but trying to actually work with it. And that Sagittarius South Node could be an indication, hello, you've been doing bits and pieces for a long time. You've been very idealistic about things in regards to your profession. So it's about time to start something new. And obviously having North Node in the 4th house is going back to your roots, which is nothing else but family. So actually that's how I decided about going for family constellation.
But 4th house is all about relaxation, correct?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So relaxing through your personal learning process. So.
That's right. And 4th house and Pisces rising sign are really related to karma. So even some of the karmic wounds for Pisces rising sign, I think it could be important in the next 18 months to be released. Yeah, surely.
So that's about, in short, what I have for the 12 signs for the nodal axis changing signs. Let's look at the eclipse. Was it end of the year in December? Was it December 13th? Was it?
Yeah.
I think it was December 13th. Let's look at that chart. If you can share the chart.
Yeah, I can bring that up for you. December 14th.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, the chart is not shared yet.
Oh yeah, again, I've done that. Mistake. Here you go.
Yeah, so this particular solar eclipse on the 14th of December 2020, it is part of a family of eclipses that's called Saros Cycle 4 South. And the themes that carry along with this family of eclipses, it has a very strong emotional feelings concerning relationships and money. And there can be anger or lust involved.
Yeah.
And this family of eclipses, there's a sense of fatedness, and individuals may find themselves caught up in relationship events beyond their control. And there can be also a sudden desire to finish up a relationship.
Yeah.
Emotions can be blocked or checked in some way, leading up to a great deal of frustration. So the best approach when it comes to this family of eclipses would be to avoid rash reactions until the issues kind of simmer down. So it can be quite emotionally charged, this because I have this conjunct my 4th house cusp.
Lovely.
So I'm like, okay. Are we gonna save like Venus and Mars retrograde for another session?
Yes, I want to talk about Venus retrograde for a second. But what also came to my mind here with this solar eclipse is that there is going to be so much fire energy and earth energy, and that's unfortunately a disastrous recipe again for natural disasters. Now, it would be interesting to see, I don't know whether you know that or not, what countries the solar total eclipse is going to be affecting the most. But in those countries, I could imagine some type of natural disasters again. Fire talks about hotness. Earth talks about dryness. And there is not so much air and water involved. basically there is no air whatsoever. But there is so much mutable energy going on, which is all about spreading. So unfortunately, in December, I'm expecting some major fire going on somewhere in the world. Again, obviously, if someone is interested, whether it's in their own country, just have a look your country's astrological map, what gets triggered again by this solar eclipse, and then you can get a little bit more, out of it. I would keep a conjunction of maximum 3-4 degrees especially.
I've just checked the eclipse path where this eclipse shadow will be casted in the world. And it will be much in South America.
South America.
Yeah. The Pacific, Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and Antarctica. So, it's relatively isolated where this eclipse actually takes place. Yeah. So it's like the southern hemisphere where this most of the shadow of this eclipse will be cast. And you were mentioning about the,
There is so much talk about the 2020 because it's such a huge year. I can't remember when we had so many, planetary alignment and changes and so forth. I think last but not least, I just want to talk about Venus retrograde a little bit. Maybe a little bit of a finishing up on a positive note. Even though I don't think it's like definitely about catastrophe this year. As I said, I think there might be challenges, but in a long run, I think we will need these. So Venus is going to be turning retrograde in Gemini. And that only happens again in like every 18, 20 months. And actually she's going to be spending 4 months in the sign of Gemini. Now, what's interesting about Venus is that she only goes retrograde in 5 signs, and one of them is Gemini. And her movement looks like a pentagram. It's a little bit of a witchcraft, which I also associate with Venus because of her retrograde movements. And she's got a 8-year cycle going on. So the last she went retrograde was 8 years ago in Gemini, in the sign of Gemini. Of course, she goes retrograde every 18 months, but every 8 years it triggers the same sign. So it's worth having a look at what was going on again in 2012 and what type of energies Venus experienced at that time. I think the Venus retrograde period is especially going to be affecting the Taurus and Libra people, rising people, because obviously those signs are ruled by Venus. Now, Gemini is all about learning. It's all about curiosity. So many of us might be experiencing learning new skills, learning new languages, for instance. And if my prediction is right that people are going to be moving around a lot more, obviously language teaching is going to be becoming a huge topic because people are going to be needed to learn new skills and languages. So I think to a certain extent, teachers are going to be seeing an element of increased need for them, the language teachers. Venus also in the chart shows, what you are craving for. And the air signs just kind of shows a need for collaboration with others, connecting with others, your local environment, your immediate environment. And I think Gemini is going to be asking Venus whether I am socially interactive enough or not. Gemini rules internet, so actually we might start, the question going to be here, do I want to use internet to communicate with others, or actually I want to do that in person? That could definitely be a case here. Gemini rules social media. Now, unfortunately, especially between May and June, that's going to be the time when Venus goes retrograde. So let me just check the date exactly. It's going to be
actually, I checked.
of May till 25th of June, I think that's going to be a period when the social media is just going to be lying us quite a lot. Especially because that Venus is going to be squared by Neptune as well.
Yeah.
And Neptune talks about illusions, Neptune talks about misunderstandings, you know, so just be careful what you read. On a personal level, unfortunately, I think many people might experience infidelity with that Neptune-Venus square. And I would say probably the Libra and Taurus rising people can feel that the most. Now, what's quite interesting on a world scale that England has got Libra rising sign. So unfortunately, this Venus-Neptune square might not be such a great thing, even though Venus is a benefic planet. England might be experiencing that that they are trying to mislead them, and that's something people, I think, would not like. I mean, as I said, it's going to be happening in the sign of Gemini, which is really going to be triggering their 9th house also with those North Node elements as well. Yes, it could be a little bit of a tougher period, surely.
Foreign exports, right? 9th house in a country's chart.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Also, as I said, I think many of the relationships are also going to be tested. Whether we love each other, we don't love each other. And you know, because Neptune is squaring from Pisces, it's some of the ideas we are going to have to let go of. So the retrograde period, retrograde usually an indication of re-examining things. So on a personal level, you're going to have a look where your natal Venus is. And in that case, the house position might be telling you to revisit some of those topics. So if I want to have a look at, for instance, England's chart, the natal Venus is in Aquarius in the 5th house. And Aquarius is all about freedom. And again, living like a kind of childish type of era, which could be coming up. Now, no wonder why they have got so much criminal offense going on, for instance, with this Venus in Aquarius energy, because 5th house rules the schools, Aquarius rules the youth, the younger generation, the freshness, and yeah, Venus rules the 8th house here, for instance, which is going to be talking about, again, financials. So I feel like the young people feel the most that they don't have money. And it could cause a little bit of a rebel there. 5th house in their case, for instance, rules children. So maybe one of the royal couple in the next 18 months is going to get pregnant again. I could also imagine that. Now,
can I add something?
Surely.
Like that Venus in UK's chart is also, there's tons of bullying in UK schools as well.
Yeah.
And ruling the 8th, so it can be kind of like some kids, like there's a rising trend of kids being bullied so much they take their own lives.
Yeah, that's right. Especially with the Mars square there, right?
Yeah.
And again, Mars talks about survival instincts. Taurus talks about security. Now, definitely England is going to have to step up their games, because that Venus is part of a E square. And yeah, they're going to just have to occupy them with different type of activities, hobbies. And I think the government is going to be shifting that way anyway. Now, on August 5th, Venus is actually going to be conjunct in the North Node, the very first time. So North Node talks about, you know, taking a new direction, taking a new approach. So on a personal level, it's going to be an indication of you are needed to take a different approach in your life, in the area, whatever Venus rules in your chart, or the placement of your Venus. And in England's case, I think it might be a result in a new educational system. Maybe putting a little bit more money into education, occupying the kids a little bit more, just to stop that crime. I think that's where the country is going to be heading in the next 18 months.
Right.
I mean,
So
yeah.
Venus will actually be in Gemini from April when it enters Gemini and only exits 5 months later.
Yeah, she's going to be there for a good 4.5 months. And the retrograde period is going to be lasting for 44 days this time. Usually, actually, Venus has got a 42-day period as well. So it's going to be a little bit longer this time.
And since we are talking about Venus and Gemini squaring that Neptune in Pisces, right? So for those who are actually have their significant other, there can be kind of testing them to see, like, to see the whole hard reality, whether the partner can live up to their ideal.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And for those single people, I have a feeling that you and I will probably have more people asking the question during this Venus retrograde, where's my twin flame?
Yeah, true. And from an astrological point of view, probably relationship readings are going to become a lot more important as well.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, there are so much more to talk about in regards to 2020. This is a huge year, astrologically speaking. And we have been talking about this for 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know if you need any more information, because we are ready to talk about it. There is a lot more going on. We haven't even touched so much based on that Mars retrograde period. We just touched the surface. But if we really wanted to go deeper, we would be sitting here for a good 4 or 5 hours. So thank you very much, everyone. I hope it gives you a little bit of an insight what to expect, how to shift your energies in 2020. My best tip here is just use the positive connotations of planets. Another tip I would give is have a look at the slow-moving planets, where they are in your chart, such as Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune. So just a little bit on that. Uranus is going to be especially triggering the 6 to 10 degree of Taurus this year, and the short period of time between 2 to 6 for a couple of months at the beginning of the year. So if you've got a personal planet there, obviously that Uranus energy is going to be hugely important. And have a look where that Uranus comes from in your natal chart. Uranus is all about breaking free. So if it comes from your 7th house, you might want to break free from your relationship. If it comes from your 10th house, you might want to break away from your responsibilities, work, and so on. Pluto is going to be triggering the 20 to 26 degree. So have a look if you've got any personal planets. What does that personal planet rule in your chart, and where Pluto comes from? And last but not least, Neptune is going to be triggering 16 to 20 degree Pisces. So let's have a look if you've got anything there getting triggered. And that could give you a little bit of a bigger picture of what to expect. Most certainly, I would say the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter conjunction, maybe slightly bit less felt by Pisces and Pisces and Virgo rising signs, I feel like, because it's going to be happening in their 5th and 11th axis. And those are quite lucky houses. So we just need to be working well with those energies. Of course, if you don't have any planets in those areas, if you do, then yeah, get ready. Whether you opening up a 12-month cycle or you closing down one, which I explained at the beginning. So good luck everyone for 2020, and thank you for having us. If you would like a reading with us, drop us an email. I'm going to put our email address below. And don't forget to like our video and maybe subscribe as well.
And also comment below the video if you want, certain contents from us.
Exactly, we are ready to do that. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Donny, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Bye-bye.